On today's ChurchTechCast.com Q&A show, live streaming needs, money, and, of course, ProPresenter 5. Hi, and welcome again to another episode of the ChurchTechCast.com Q&A show. This is the show where every week I try and answer your questions. My name is Paul Clifford. I'm your host. I'd love you to ask your questions, by the way. So just leave it right below the video. That's perfectly cool if you're watching the video, but if you're not, you might want to drop me a line, paul@trinitydigitalmedia.com, or hit me up on Twitter, Paul Allen Cliff, PAULALAN CLIF. Any of that's fine. So the first question comes from trinitydigitalmedia.com, and it's Santos Ramos Jr. I hope I pronounced it kind of close to correct. Didn't take Spanish, I took French, so I tend to say things with a French accent, strangely enough. Hey, God bless. My church wants to start live streaming. Yay! What recommendations can you give me when it comes to cameras, tripods, lighting, and software? What's the best amount of internet do we need to stream successfully? Thanks, all the knowledge would be much appreciated. Thanks and have a good night and God bless. Okay, Santos, I wrote a blog post, and I'm going to link to that below the video or in the show notes for the audio, all about kind of the bare minimum of what I would recommend if a church was getting into live streaming. Now, keep in mind that this is going to be above what most churches start with, because I think that most churches aren't ready to live stream when they start. They throw a camera up in the back of the room. They don't put it on a tripod, mistake number one. They don't have more than one shot to go to, mistake number two. A lot of times they won't even put good sound into it, mistake number three. And generally it's really bad. It looks like poor quality public access television. So that is why this is above that. But all this stuff is available on Amazon. In fact, it uses my Amazon affiliate link. So that should be helpful to everyone involved, that you can just go to Amazon and get it. But basically, I'll tell you what I recommend. I'm recommending that you start with at least 2 cameras on decent quality fluid head tripods. I've looked at the Canon Vixia line, not because they're the best, not because they're the cheapest, but because I think they're going to give you the flexibility that you would need in this situation. And quite frankly, Twit, This Week in Tech, which is a podcast network, they use exclusively these Vixias all over the place, and they're very inexpensive for what they do, and if the place is lit well, you get pretty good video. So that's why I did that. Now I want you to run that from HDMI into SDI. Now the reason that I suggest that is SDI, Serial Digital Interface, allows you to run the signal a much farther distance than the up to 10 meters that the HDMI spec provides. Now I recognize you can go with Baylins, you can go with some amplifiers, things like that, but really I'm gonna say just go to SDI, because the cabling is very inexpensive and it's reliable. So that's very good too, and it's future proof in that you can go to nicer cameras and then still use the same cable, so that's good as well. Run that into, if you're bare minimum, I really recommend the Blackmagic Design ATEM Television Studio, which has 4 SDI inputs. You can run a computer into that as well, and so you can have your computer with lyrics, and then your 2 cameras, and that'll give you a great stream. Now, I think that you should come out of that into either a streaming computer, or I'm thinking maybe a video from Teradek. So I'm hoping to get in the brand new shipping just this week Video Mini for a review that I'm doing for church production. If I do that, that might be the one that I recommend, because it's about $500, and I wouldn't recommend buying a computer for less than $500 to do streaming, and then you would have to buy a capture device. So you get an all-in-one thing with this, and no one's going to install a new version of Windows, for example, and mess you up. No one's going to get a virus on the streaming computer, etc. No one's going to borrow the streaming computer to play solitaire, only to find out that you can't find it on Sunday morning, because this is just a little box the size of a deck of cards that would do that for you. So I'll provide a link to all those things in the show notes below. Next, Streepy TV on YouTube, in response to one of my live streaming articles. Oh, real quick, Santos, depending on the resolution you need at least a megabit. More is better. So I would say probably, if you're going to do HD, I wouldn't try and do it with less than a megabit up. Up is what really matters. Okay, sorry, nearly forgot that piece. So download speed doesn't matter as much. Streepy TV on YouTube. Can you make money on live streaming, and how? Yes, you can. Now, you can make money directly by charging for the live stream if you've got an audience, pay-per-view, things like that. You can advertise to them if you've got an audience. You can sell stuff directly that you have. Basically, any way that television makes money, you could make money with a live stream, assuming you have enough audience. So that's just the general caveat to that. Now, Max, via email, asked a couple of ProPresenter questions. Going back to my very first question, this is his kind of second email, about having the first slide of the next song appear in the next slide field of the stage display. We've been using the Command 0 function as you recommended, and sometimes this does work well, but our real problem case is if we literally go from one song to another without stopping and with no bars in between. In this case, the vocalists still need the current slide to be displayed while at the same time seeing the next slide. So let me stop there before I answer the other question, which is, I know that this is a limitation with ProPresenter, that the next slide on the stage display is per song, even when it's seamless showing up there. So here's what I recommend. Have an empty slide at the end of every song, which you copy the first line of the next song into. You never have to show that up on screen. But even if you did, as long as the background stays the same and the formatting stays the same, you wouldn't know it. But let's say that you put that up there, then to the vocalist it'll appear like you've got the next line, which is the next song, show up there. Now, I'm going to tack on another tip, which I mentioned in the last time that I addressed your question on this show, and that is, so it seems like we're back to creating a new file for every medley we do, which unfortunately negates our ability to use the arrangement feature. Can't seem to find any other way around this, though. Okay, so what I suggest is, when you quit ProPresenter, it'll say, I've noticed some changes. Do you want to save those? No, you don't want to save them. So just make sure that as you're creating your presentation, you always have that extra slide at the end of the song, which has the first slide at the beginning, the first slide from the beginning of the next song. That'll work great. But as you're quitting and it asks you if you want to save it, say no, and it'll go back to being blank. Same thing for your arrangements. If you've got an odd arrangement that's a one-off, you're only using it once, no chance that you're ever going to use the arrangement ever again, then by all means do the exact same thing. And when you quit ProPresenter, you can actually specify which things you want to save and which you don't. So if you do make an important change, then you would save that change. Just make sure you note, hey, I don't want to make this change, but I do want to make that change. That kind of thing. So, but that is on a song-by-song basis. So if you add a question mark at the end of verse 2 in one song and you decide to save that, it's going to save the other changes. So you would have to revert those changes before you exited out, just so you know. I know it's not exactly what ProPresenter is designed to do, but that's a way around it. So I hope that helps. And I hope it helps you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them for me. I want to answer them for you. And if you'd love to get more content like this, because I'd love to give it to you, just head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/gifts, GIFTS. There I've got some gifts for you that you can get, and you'll get a free copy of my email newsletter, which is sent from my email address. Now I use a service, but it's still my email address. So if you have any questions, you can do something else really neat and just hit reply on that. Type your email and it'll come directly to me. I don't even have a virtual assistant or anything. It's all me. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com.